You begin by letting yourself drift into a space far older than memory, a place where the early solar system stirs in slow quietness. Here, there is no solid ground, no familiar sky, only a haze of dust and newborn lights swirling through a vastness that feels both infinite and intimate. You move gently through this ancient cloud, noticing how every tiny particle glimmers with possibility. Each grain is like a seed waiting for its story to unfold, drawn together not by intention but by the patient pull of gravity. You watch as these specks of matter gather, separating and rejoining, forming fragile clusters that grow heavier with time. In this calm, primordial expanse, you sense collisions that are not violent but soft, as though the universe is learning to shape itself with tender hands. Dust settles upon dust, tiny stones brush past one another, and slowly, over millions of years, the first asteroids emerge. You feel the quiet rhythm of their birth, the slow settling of materials after each gentle impact. It reminds you of snowflakes landing on untouched ground, building layers that hold the memory of every flake before them. You drift closer to one of these early worlds, a rough sphere only a few kilometers across. Its surface is a mosaic of ancient fragments fused together. You run your mind across its texture, sensing how it holds the echoes of the solar system's earliest days. There is no wind to smooth it, no rain to wash it clean. Everything that touches it remains there forever, preserved in silence. You imagine the asteroid as a diary written by time itself, each crater a sentence, each ridge a whisper of events too slow for human eyes to catch. Your body relaxes as you float beside it, knowing that these rocks form the building blocks of planets. You sense the physics behind their growth, how gravity, even when faint, pulls gently at loose material until small becomes larger, and larger becomes something capable of shaping the worlds we know. You picture tiny clumps merging into mountains, mountains merging into spheres, spheres becoming the planetary embryos that one day would ignite into worlds of fire, water, and sky. You let your awareness expand outward, noticing countless other asteroids drifting nearby. They don't rush or collide blindly, instead, they follow orbits guided by the sun's steady hand. Their movements are slow, deliberate, almost peaceful. You feel yourself moving with them, part of a cosmic dance that has taken place for billions of years without ever making a sound. In this silence, you can hear the story of how everything begins quietly, slowly, with patience. Now you drift deeper into this early solar fog, sensing how metals cooled, how minerals formed in the cold shadow of space. Iron condensed from vapor, binding itself into solid shapes. Silicates crystallized, trapping tiny pockets of ancient sunlight within their lattice. Carbon dust merged into more complex forms, each a building block for chemistry yet to awaken. You imagine these materials as ingredients in a recipe older than life, stirred gently by forces too vast to rush. The more you listen to the silence, the more you realize how much these asteroids hold. They contain pieces of the sun's infancy, remnants of the nebula that once glowed with the birth of a star. They hold water locked in minerals, perhaps delivered to Earth by their wandering ancestors. They cradle metals forged in ancient stellar explosions long before our solar system came to be. Every asteroid is a museum without walls, drifting endlessly through space, waiting for curious minds to read its pages. You glide past fragments that never grew large enough to become worlds. Some are rough and jagged, others smooth like river stones despite never knowing a river. Their surfaces bear scratches from micrometeorites, tiny scars collected across eons. You find comfort in their imperfection, sensing that every mark is a story of survival, a testament to the gentle persistence of cosmic evolution. Nothing here is rushed, everything unfolds with a grace that invites you to breathe more slowly. You imagine yourself reaching out, touching one of these ancient stones. Even without a body, you feel the coolness of its surface, the calm weight of its history. You sense the slow dance of molecules within it, vibrating in silent harmony. You understand that this rock has been waiting for billions of years, drifting alone, untouched. It has no urgency, no fear of passing time. It simply exists, carrying the memory of creation within it. As you drift, you feel yourself becoming lighter, as though you too were made of dust. You imagine dispersing into the solar nebula, joining the particles that once coalesced to form these early worlds. You sense how gravity would draw you toward others, how you might become part of something larger, a pebble, a boulder, perhaps even an asteroid yourself. This thought fills you with a peculiar peace, reminding you that everything in the universe is part of a long, shared story. You observe how some asteroids break apart when struck, scattering their fragments back into space. Yet even this destruction is gentle, almost natural, allowing new combinations of matter to form elsewhere. In this universe, nothing is wasted, every piece finds a new purpose. The dust you see here today might someday become part of a planet, a moon, or even a living being. The idea settles softly within you, like dust finding its resting place. You drift backward, widening your perspective again. The early solar system spirals slowly around you, radiant with new beginnings. You imagine the sun growing brighter with time, burning more steadily, shaping the orbits of these young worlds. The warmth reaches you, faint and distant, but enough to remind you that even in the coldness of space, there is always a source of light guiding everything. As you float through this quiet scene, a question rises within you, a question as old as the rocks themselves. If these asteroids hold the memories of creation, what other secrets do they keep? What metals, what minerals, what stories lie hidden within their silent cores? You feel the curiosity stirring gently, not as a demand, but as an invitation to explore further. You let yourself drift a little farther, feeling the emptiness between these stones as something gentle rather than lonely. The space is wide, but it holds everything lightly, carrying each asteroid with a kind of quiet respect. You notice how the darkness is not empty at all, it is filled with potential, with the soft glow of distant sunlight reflecting off surfaces untouched for ages. You breathe into the vastness, feeling how your presence becomes part of this ancient calm. And as you move, you begin to sense the faint pull of the asteroid belt ahead, a place where countless worlds in miniature circle the sun with patience beyond imagining. You realize that your journey is only beginning, and the space between these early rocks is guiding you toward a new chapter, where drifting becomes exploring, and quiet origins give way to the gentle motion of worlds that never stop their slow, celestial dance. You follow this silent invitation, ready to float deeper into their realm. You begin the chapter by exhaling softly, letting your breath fall into a slower rhythm, as though your lungs are matching the quiet pulse of space. You feel your weight slipping away, your body loosening, and suddenly you are no longer standing on familiar ground. Instead, you float gently into the open, dark expanse where the asteroid belt waits like a vast, silent river of stone. You move without effort, without sound, guided only by the gentle push of your thoughts and the steady pull of the sun somewhere behind you. At first, you expect chaos, countless rocks rushing past one another, colliding and shattering in a violent storm. But as you drift deeper, the truth feels far more peaceful. The belt is not crowded at all. Instead, it stretches out wide and empty, with each asteroid drifting through its own path as if respecting the quiet personal space of its neighbors. You realize you could float for minutes without seeing anything larger than a grain of sand. This calmness settles into your body, soft and reassuring, like discovering that a place once feared is actually gentle. When you finally see the first asteroid drifting toward you, it feels almost shy in its motion. It moves slowly, following a loop around the sun so smooth and predictable that you could sketch its path in your mind. You let yourself drift closer, noticing the way sunlight touches its rugged surface. Shadows fall in deep, silent pools inside its craters, and the sunlit peaks glow like pale embers. You sense the small world turning lazily as if it has all the time in the universe. You drift alongside it, and your body relaxes even more. There is no wind here, no waves, no hurry. Only you, the stone, and the vastness that carries both of you. You feel the freedom of weightlessness, the way your limbs seem to float like soft ribbons. Every small movement becomes a gentle glide. Your thoughts slow to match the rhythm of this space, flowing like the quiet current between drifting worlds. As you continue, new asteroids appear, some as small as pebbles, others as large as mountains. They hover at distances that feel respectful, as though each one understands that harmony comes from never pushing too close. You imagine their orbits as delicate threads woven into an invisible pattern, each one guided by the sun's constant pull. This pattern is not random. It is shaped by ancient gravitational conversations between planets and rocks, especially the giant Jupiter, whose distant presence creates gaps where no asteroid dares to stay for long. You glide near one of these gaps and feel something strange, not a force, but an absence of presence, a lane through space where stones avoid traveling. You sense how gravity sculpts these empty regions, nudging asteroids into safer orbits. The idea comforts you, as though the solar system itself maintains a kind of order, a natural balance that protects its drifting children. You breathe slowly as you take in the stillness. Only the sun seems to move, sliding its light across your view, warming one side of your invisible body while leaving the other in cool shadow. You feel suspended between warmth and cold, between motion and stillness, between curiosity and calm. The contrast is soothing. It reminds you that space, despite its vast emptiness, carries a quiet rhythm. You let yourself drift toward a cluster of smaller asteroids tumbling gently together. They do not crash, instead, they dance in mutual orbit, circling a common center of gravity. You sense the physics of their motion, not as equations but as a feeling, a soft tug, a gentle counterbalance, like the motions of two people swaying slowly in a quiet room. The stones never touch, yet they move together with harmony, as though guided by an ancient cosmic choreography. You curl your thoughts around one of these rocks, noticing the tiny details of its surface. Pebbles cling weakly to it, held in place by the smallest hint of gravity. Powdery dust rests in shallow pockets, unmoved for millions of years. You imagine brushing your fingers across it and seeing the grains lift, floating upward in slow motion, never falling back. The image fills you with wonder, reminding you how different the rules of motion become when weight is no longer a master. You take a slow breath and let yourself drift higher, giving you a wider view of the belt. The asteroids appear like lanterns scattered across a dark ocean. Their shadows stretch long and quiet. Their motions feel purposeful, even though no mind guides them. You realize how safe this place feels despite its reputation. Most of the space between the stones is empty. Most of their journeys are solitary, peaceful drifts around the sun. You imagine your own body joining them, orbiting, steady, moving with a grace you never knew you possessed. Your presence adds nothing to their paths, yet their calmness adds something to you. A new kind of stillness settles inside you, one shaped not by silence alone but by the understanding that silence itself is a kind of story. You sense the history within these asteroids. Many are fragments of worlds that never formed, their beginnings interrupted billions of years ago. Others are ancient survivors from the earliest days of the solar system. You imagine each one as a page torn from a book older than Earth, carrying hints of chemistry, minerals, and metals that still reflect the whispers of creation. You picture humanity someday reading these pages carefully, learning about its own origins through the stones that drift far beyond home. As you float, you begin to wonder how we humans ever learned to reach such distant places. The belt feels so calm, so untouched, that it seems impossible to imagine machines or spacecraft cutting through its quiet paths. And yet, you know we do. You picture the first spacecraft that glided through these regions, sending back images that made Earth feel both small and connected. You imagine robotic probes landing on asteroids, tasting their minerals, measuring their orbits, touching them for the first time after billions of years of solitude. You sense a shift in your own curiosity, a new question forming softly within you. If the belt is a region of such calm, such emptiness, such gentle drifting, how do we, with all our movement and noise, ever manage to navigate it? How do we extend our hands to reach these ancient stones without disturbing their quiet dance? The thought lingers, warm and inviting. You breathe one more slow breath, feeling the belt stretch endlessly ahead of you like a tranquil sea. The rocks drift, the sun glows, and you float with them, part of their patient rhythm. And as you follow their paths, a gentle curiosity begins to guide you toward the next step, toward imagining what it feels like to finally touch one of these silent worlds with your own weightless body. You approach slowly, letting your body drift as if suspended in a gentle current. The asteroid comes into view, a small, irregular shape floating in the infinite dark. Its contours are jagged yet serene, each ridge and crater a testament to millions, even billions, of years spent alone in the quiet void. You feel yourself slowing as you near it, your motions tiny and deliberate, because here, even a slight push can send you spinning endlessly. There is no hurry, there is no wait. Only the calm anticipation of first contact. Your breath matches the rhythm of your floating body, each inhale and exhale like a gentle wave moving through a silent sea. You notice how the surface looks softer than expected, as if the stone itself has been worn down not by wind or water, but by patience, by the slow accumulation of dust and micro-impacts over eons. The ground seems almost receptive, inviting your first step while reminding you that here, every motion is magnified. As you descend closer, you imagine the sensation of your feet barely pressing against this world. Even standing, you would weigh almost nothing. A tiny hop carries you across distances that would feel impossible on Earth. You allow yourself to float a few inches above the surface, feeling the gentle tug of microgravity holding you near but never forcing you down. Every movement is a conversation with physics, a negotiation with forces so subtle that they almost feel like a caress. The surface itself is a patchwork of textures. Some areas are jagged and fractured, shards of stone jutting upward like the ruins of a forgotten cathedral. Other regions are powdery, dust flowing in tiny drifts, settling in pockets and valleys as if sleeping. You imagine running your hand over the surface, feeling the contrast between hard rock and soft dust. Even the tiniest grains seem to resist falling, hovering briefly before obeying the faint pull toward the asteroid's center. Nearby, robotic probes land as if stepping on air. Their movements are delicate and purposeful, designed to cling to the stone without disturbing it. You watch a harpoon embed itself into the rock, anchors deploying silently to secure a foothold. It strikes you as beautiful, a dance between human intention and the patient, unyielding nature of the asteroid. Every action is amplified here, the softest touch reverberates across the surface in slow, deliberate motion. You take another gentle breath, feeling your body relax further as you imagine taking your first step. It is less a step and more a glide, a slow arc through the tiny gravity, almost like walking on a trampoline where every push sends you floating forward. The experience is strange yet calming. It reminds you that even in unfamiliar conditions, your body can adapt if you move slowly and mindfully. Dust swirls faintly beneath your imaginary feet, rising in lazy eddies before settling again. You notice that even the smallest disturbance creates a visible pattern, a ripple through the otherwise still surface. You sense how careful any action must be. A misplaced step, a sudden motion, could send particles drifting for meters, carrying the quiet memory of your presence long after you move away. You let this awareness deepen your respect for the environment. You drift toward a shallow crater, peering inside. Its walls are uneven, fragments of rock jutting at strange angles. The shadows are soft but deep, creating a tapestry of light and dark. You imagine the probes measuring temperature, scanning for minerals, collecting information with movements so gentle they disturb almost nothing. You realize how precise every tool must be, responding to physics that are entirely different from Earth's. Every action is magnified, every force balanced delicately. Your mind begins to understand the language of low gravity, the push and pull, the subtle resistance, the way dust responds almost like a living thing. You imagine placing a small drill onto the surface. On Earth, you would press with strength. Here, you must counteract the recoil, brace lightly, and let the motion unfold like a careful handshake. You feel the poetry in this precision, the rhythm and restraint. As you float closer to the edge of a ridge, you notice pebbles moving slowly under the faint pull of the asteroid's gravity. They drift in arcs, curling over the surface before finally settling in the hollows below. You imagine observing these motions for hours, days even, and how each tiny movement tells a story of forces invisible yet unyielding. Even in silence, the asteroid speaks, and you listen through observation and patience. Nearby, a robotic arm stretches out to collect a sample. Its fingers close around a piece of rock, lifting it delicately. You imagine how the machine compensates for the lack of gravity, its movements choreographed like a slow dance. You feel a kinship with it, sensing that whether human or robot, interaction here demands care, mindfulness, and respect for a world so fragile yet enduring. The sunlight falls across the surface, casting elongated shadows that reveal every ridge, every subtle dip. You imagine the warmth of photons landing on rock untouched for billions of years. The light is gentle but constant, illuminating surfaces that have never known wind or rain, never felt a storm. You sense the patience of the universe here, the way it has allowed this small world to exist quietly, carrying the imprint of time itself. You glide closer to a tiny mound of dust, floating as you approach. Every movement must be soft, deliberate. You imagine how a misstep might send particles drifting in unpredictable directions, each one carrying a trace of your presence. And yet, even in this delicate environment, you feel freedom, the freedom to observe, to move slowly, to learn the gentle physics that govern a world unlike any you have known. Your thoughts drift to the first humans who will set foot here. You imagine them adapting their motions, learning to walk like dancers on invisible strings, each step a careful negotiation with forces too small to feel on Earth but monumental here. They will discover how tools behave differently, how drills recoil, how anchors hold and release, how dust moves in ways both predictable and mesmerizing. You feel excitement for that patient discovery, the joy of exploration grounded in mindfulness. You pause above a shallow basin and let yourself hover. The silence is profound. There is no wind, no sound, only your breath and your imagination syncing with the asteroid's quiet heartbeat. You sense the deep history in the surface, ancient collisions, dust settled for eons, minerals formed in isolation. This is a world that has survived untouched, preserved in microgravity, waiting for gentle human curiosity to touch it for the first time. As you drift slowly, you notice the horizon curving softly beneath you, subtle and almost invisible. It reminds you that this is not a flat space but a miniature world, fragile and finite, yet complete in itself. You imagine walking along the ridge, feeling every step amplified, every motion a deliberate dance with gravity. You sense that this experience is not about conquering but about learning, not about leaving a mark but about reading the surface's quiet story. And as you drift higher, lifting off the surface after your imagined first contact, a new awareness takes hold. The asteroid's microgravity is both a challenge and a gift. Every motion teaches patience, every gentle step reveals subtlety, every floating grain reminds you that even the smallest forces can have profound effects. You sense that touching this world is not just about science or exploration but about attuning your body and mind to the rhythms of a universe so unlike your own. You start by letting your thoughts float to the machines that accompany humans in these fragile worlds. Imagine drills, small and delicate, designed to bite into rock without overwhelming it. Here, on a microgravity surface, every action has a reaction. Push too hard, and the tool may lift itself and you into a slow spin. Push too softly, and it barely touches the surface, failing to gather even a fragment. You feel the tension, the balance, the rhythm required for every movement. This is a place where patience is more powerful than force. Anchors extend like the legs of careful insects, sinking into crevices and clinging to jagged surfaces. They hold themselves firmly, but lightly, allowing drills and collectors to work without sliding or spinning out of control. You imagine how the machines listen to the world through sensors, feeling vibrations, detecting density, and sensing texture in ways humans cannot. Every motion is deliberate. Every adjustment is subtle. Here, quiet precision matters more than brute strength. Your body drifts closer to a robotic arm stretching across the asteroid's surface. The fingers wrap around a small stone, lifting it gently. You feel the connection between human intent and robotic execution. You imagine the arm as an extension of your own curiosity, a partner in discovery. Every grain it lifts, every fragment it measures, is part of a conversation between mind, machine, and microgravity. You feel a soft rhythm settling within you, mirroring the slow, careful cadence of the tools. Drills hum faintly, soft vibrations that travel through the rock. You sense how physics guides every action. Torque must be balanced, recoil carefully absorbed, and contact maintained without exerting excessive pressure. The drill does not push as it would on Earth. Instead, it kisses the surface repeatedly, each motion small, deliberate, and measured. You can almost feel the gentle resistance of the stone, the quiet dialogue between tool and rock, and your mind rests in the beauty of such mindful work. Harpoons deploy slowly, embedding themselves into the asteroid to anchor larger equipment. You notice the careful calculations behind each shot, the angle, the force, the material of the hook, all designed to interact with the rock without shattering it. You imagine them as tiny dancers leaping onto an unseen stage, finding balance before the next movement. Your thoughts slow to match their rhythm, appreciating the artistry of engineering combined with the humility required to work in a microgravity world. You drift over a collection point where loose minerals are gently gathered. Small scoops extend, brushing the surface lightly, lifting grains with barely a touch. Magnets attract metallic fragments, pulling them silently from dust clouds. You sense the patience required, each fragment moves slowly, floating until captured, as if the universe itself conspired to prolong the suspense. You relax into the gentle pace, feeling your breath align with the rhythm of collection. As you hover nearby, you imagine yourself using a drill in this environment. Your motions would need to be slow, controlled, deliberate. Every push is a negotiation. Every twist is a conversation with gravity. You realize how counterintuitive this is, compared to Earth's world of friction and weight, where strength often overcomes resistance. Here, delicacy is mastery. Your mind absorbs this lesson, softening, slowing, attuning to a different kind of motion. You notice how anchors allow larger machinery to operate without drifting. You picture a collector pressing into a mineral-rich ridge, stabilized by multiple anchor points. The machine moves with quiet purpose, extracting small samples grain by grain. You feel the patience in every gesture, the precision in every movement, the intelligence required to operate under conditions where gravity is a whisper rather than a pull. Each grain lifted is a story, each fragment measured a new page in the asteroid's history. You let yourself imagine the technology behind these tools. Microgravity drills adjust their torque dynamically, responding to shifts in surface composition. Anchors sense the texture of the stone, adapting their grip as needed. Robotic explorers communicate wirelessly, coordinating motions to avoid collisions and maximize efficiency. You sense the invisible orchestration, the silent teamwork that allows humans to interact with a world so fragile yet so rich in resources. You float higher, observing multiple machines working across the asteroid. One probe hops lightly, adjusting its position with careful jets. Another drills a shallow hole, while a collector nearby gathers powdery fragments. You sense the choreography required, each machine's motion must be timed precisely, accounting for inertia, microgravity, and the subtle shifts in the asteroid's own mass. You feel a meditative rhythm in this dance, as if the asteroid itself guides the activity, rewarding gentleness and patience. You pause, letting your mind wander across the tiny world. The surface is a mosaic of colors and textures, each crater a record of ancient impacts. You imagine the drills reaching into veins of metal, anchors holding firm, and robots lifting samples without disturbing the delicate balance of dust and rock. Your heart slows, matching the quiet diligence of these machines. You sense that mastery here is not about speed or force, but about understanding, timing, and respect for the subtle physics of microgravity. A soft sense of awe settles over you as you imagine the tools harvesting entire mountains of metal without ever touching the ground in the way we think of touching. Each piece is collected carefully, every movement considered, the energy of interaction spread across multiple systems. You see that this is not extraction in haste, but a meditation, a dialogue with the asteroid. Even destruction becomes gentle, a redistribution of materials rather than violent removal. You float past a probe that drills while anchored, grains of metal drifting upward in slow arcs. You watch them, imagining each one as a miniature story, a fragment of the solar system's history carried aloft. Some particles float back to the surface, guided by faint gravity, while others remain suspended, captured by collection fields. You sense the harmony, the balance, the quiet intelligence that guides every motion. Your mind drifts to the challenge of scaling this activity. How could humans, or their machines, gather resources from multiple asteroids, each with its own shape, size, and rotation? You feel a soft curiosity arise, a gentle excitement at the possibilities. The asteroid belt is vast, and each world holds treasures beyond imagination, waiting to be explored and understood with patience, respect, and mindfulness. You notice how even the smallest miscalculation could send equipment tumbling into space, and you feel a gentle thrill at the responsibility inherent in working here. Every motion matters, every tool is carefully designed, every anchor and drill must cooperate with the environment rather than force it. You imagine the learning process, the quiet refinement, the adjustments measured in tiny increments over hours, days, months. You sense that mastery here is slow, intentional, and deeply meditative. And as you float, watching the machines operate with rhythm and patience, you realize that human ingenuity, when tempered with respect for delicate physics, can achieve feats that seem impossible. You imagine the possibilities, collecting metals, minerals, and even ice, all without disturbing the silent, fragile balance of the asteroid. You sense the harmony, the quiet understanding between human intention and cosmic patience. You drift above the asteroid, feeling the sun's distant warmth brushing your imagined skin. It is subtle, almost a whisper, yet constant and insistent. You sense the quiet energy reaching across millions of kilometers, touching every grain of rock with patience rather than force. The sunlight here is not harsh, it is a soft, deliberate presence, illuminating the contours of ridges, craters, and dust-laden valleys. You let your mind relax into the rhythm of the light, feeling your curiosity pulse gently along with its steady glow. A solar furnace appears in your imagination, designed not with flames or combustion but with mirrors and lenses that focus the sun's energy into precise beams. You imagine these rays concentrating on a patch of rock, heating it slowly, predictably. The surface begins to soften, minerals loosening their hold on each other like a quiet sigh after eons of stillness. You sense that no hammer, no drill, could accomplish this delicate work with the same patient efficiency. The sun itself becomes a tool, silent, enduring, inexhaustible. As you watch, the minerals respond to the warmth in slow arcs. Metals begin to gleam faintly, reflecting light like molten honey in miniature streams. Dust rises lazily from the surface, drifting in microgravity before settling in tiny eddies. You feel your breath slow to match the pace of the transformation, aware that the universe here moves differently than on Earth. Time seems soft, almost pliable, allowing you to witness change at a pace that feels natural and contemplative. You imagine touching the softened surface. Even in microgravity, the metals would yield slightly under pressure, allowing collectors to gather fragments without violence. There is no rush, no eruption, only a careful release of the asteroid's treasures into the waiting hands of machines designed to respect its fragility. You sense the patience embedded in this process, a reminder that even the hardest, oldest stones respond to steady warmth and understanding. Nearby, a robotic probe adjusts its mirrors, redirecting sunlight to another patch of the asteroid's surface. You watch the process unfold slowly, almost ceremoniously. Shadows stretch, dust drifts, and the surface begins to shimmer in response to the concentrated heat. You feel a connection between energy and matter, understanding intuitively that sunlight can shape not just temperature, but opportunity, preparation, and discovery. Each photon seems to carry both warmth and promise. You drift lower, imagining grains of metal rising from the softened rock. They float gently, guided by magnetic fields or collection containers. The scene is quiet yet mesmerizing, like watching slow honey pour in miniature streams. You feel the beauty in this process not because it is loud or violent, but because it demonstrates how delicate forces, applied over time, can achieve outcomes that raw power alone cannot. Your mind considers the energy required. On Earth, melting metal demands intense heat, combustion, and noise. Here, the sun's patient light achieves the same effect without disruption, without danger. You sense the poetry in this simplicity, the universe providing the energy, humans and machines providing direction, all in harmony. You feel your body relax further, syncing with the unhurried rhythm of creation and extraction. You notice how different minerals respond to this starlight. Some shimmer quickly, releasing their bonds almost immediately. Others resist, taking longer, revealing the stubborn patience encoded within their crystalline structures. You imagine scientists observing each reaction, learning to adjust angles, focus, and duration with subtlety and grace. The process feels like painting, each stroke of sunlight revealing hidden textures, each adjustment unlocking secrets hidden for billions of years. You let your imagination drift over the tiny particles floating in microgravity. Dust, metal, and silicate grains move lazily, almost dancing, guided by the interplay of sunlight and magnetism. You sense the harmony, every fragment follows a gentle trajectory, every movement deliberate yet natural. It is a quiet ballet, where no force is wasted, where every element participates willingly in the slow unfolding of discovery. As you float, you picture the potential of this technique. Could entire mountains of metal be harvested using nothing but the sun? You feel wonder rising softly, not as alarm but as gentle curiosity. Here, in the weightless calm, energy is not imposed but invited. The sun becomes a patient partner, shaping raw matter with an elegance unmatched by any earthly tool. You sense a quiet revolution unfolding in your mind, imagining industries powered solely by the patient glow of starlight. You pause above a small crater, imagining the surface softening beneath focused sunlight. Dust rises in microeddies, metallic fragments glitter in slow arcs, and your breath matches the rhythm of change. You sense the universality of the sun's energy, distant, persistent, and sufficient. You feel that even in this remote, tiny world, the patient warmth of photons can unlock resources, sustain explorers, and fuel future expansion. There is no hurry. The process teaches patience, respect, and careful observation. You drift past mirrors and lenses reflecting sunlight across multiple surfaces. Each beam is carefully aimed, concentrating energy in precise locations. You feel a sense of wonder at the orchestration required, light, gravity, microgravity, and machinery all working together in silent harmony. The asteroid is not conquered, it is persuaded gently, nudged into revealing its treasures without force. You sense the artistry inherent in this balance, a lesson for humans as much as for machines. Nearby, a robotic collector gathers softened minerals, each grain floating upward like a tiny star. You watch, entranced, imagining the slow accumulation of metals over hours, days, perhaps months. Every particle carries a story, every collection a meditation on time, patience, and the quiet persistence of energy. You feel your curiosity settling into calm fascination, understanding that harvesting in space is not a battle, but a dialogue. You drift higher again, looking down on the sunlit surface below. The asteroid glows faintly in response to concentrated light, metallic veins shimmering, dust drifting, surfaces softening in silence. You feel your body move gently with microgravity, flowing with the rhythm of change, absorbing both the science and the serenity of the scene. You sense that every interaction here, every photon, every magnetic pull, every lift of dust is part of a larger story, the patient release of a world's secrets, guided by light and understanding. And as you float over the softened craters, your mind turns naturally to the question that hovers like a distant glow: if sunlight alone can perform such gentle yet profound work, how might entire industries of the future operate in this silent, patient, weightless world? You imagine possibilities stretching across space, fueled by light, guided by care, and shaped by understanding. You begin by imagining yourself floating gently above the asteroid's surface, a silent observer among the machinery that moves with quiet purpose. The robots are unlike any creatures on Earth. They crawl like patient insects, hop like dancers through microgravity, glide effortlessly across uneven terrain. Every motion is deliberate, calculated, yet fluid, as if they possess a calm awareness of their fragile environment. You feel your own body relax in sympathy with their slow rhythm, letting your curiosity drift in tandem with theirs. One robot extends a slender leg, pressing a soft sensor against the rock. You sense the delicate reading it gathers: texture, density, magnetic properties, all without disturbing a single grain. The machine moves almost imperceptibly, like a meditation in motion. You realize how much trust is required here. In weightlessness, any misstep can send a robot spinning away into the void. You feel the tension of their tiny balances, yet notice how effortlessly they manage it, a choreography guided by patience, sensors, and intelligence. Nearby, another robot hops lightly over a ridge. You watch it rise, pause, and descend in a perfect arc. Its small jets push it delicately, compensating for microgravity, preventing any sudden collision. You feel the artistry in these movements, the poetry of science in practice. Each hop is both experiment and exploration, each glide a conversation with the asteroid's surface. You sense that the machines are not just tools but partners in understanding, extending human curiosity into places our bodies cannot linger. You drift closer, watching a robotic arm reach into a shadowed crevice. Its tiny fingers probe, twist, and lift fragments of rock. You sense how it reads each surface, how every contact is measured, recorded, and interpreted. You imagine the algorithms translating touch into knowledge: hardness, metallic composition, microfractures invisible to the naked eye. The arm moves slowly, almost reverently, as though the asteroid itself deserves respect. You feel the patience of both machine and human, a partnership spanning space and intellect. Your awareness expands as you observe multiple robots coordinating. One lifts a fragment while another steadies itself nearby. You sense a silent network of communication, invisible threads connecting intent, motion, and response. There is no rush, time stretches to accommodate their measured actions. You feel your own mind sync with this cadence, a slow inhalation and exhalation matching the glide of robots across the dust. Each motion becomes meditation, each lift of rock a quiet lesson in collaboration. You imagine the sensors mapping hidden layers beneath the asteroid's surface. Thermal imagers detect subtle heat variations, magnetometers trace metallic veins, LiDAR traces contours with astonishing precision. You sense the intelligence encoded in each reading, and in response, you feel a gentle awe at how humans can extend cognition into places they cannot touch. You realize these machines are more than tools, they are extensions of observation, translators of a world that moves in silence. As you float, you notice how microgravity shapes every action. A simple rotation requires countermovements, a small push creates drifting arcs. You imagine the algorithms that guide these robots, constantly calculating, compensating, and correcting. You sense the elegance in this adaptation, a dance between physics and engineering, precision and intuition. You feel the rhythm settle in your mind, each correction and adjustment mirrored by your own calm awareness. You drift over a cluster of dust and tiny fragments being collected. A robot lifts a grainy piece, letting it float into a magnetic trap. Another hovers above, scanning for denser metals. You feel the harmony in these motions, the balance of energy, weight, and time. Even in the silence of space, there is rhythm, subtle, intricate, yet calming. You sense that intelligence here is not loud or hurried, it is patient, observant, and adaptive. Your mind wanders to the possibility of autonomous learning. You imagine robots adjusting their motions based on each new observation, understanding how surfaces respond, how particles float, and how instruments interact with materials. You feel a quiet fascination at the concept of machines growing in capability without human intervention, moving with curiosity shaped by physics, patterns, and probability. Your thoughts drift with theirs, imagining a symphony of exploration orchestrated by intelligence, observation, and patience. You pause, hovering near a small robotic probe that twists gently, gathering a sample of metallic dust. You notice how it stabilizes itself using tiny thrusters, how every sensor reading feeds into its next decision. You feel a sense of intimacy with the machine, as if you understand its intent without words. You sense that exploration is no longer merely about collecting resources, but about learning the language of the asteroid itself. Each motion, each measurement, is a conversation. As you continue, you notice the robot's subtle interactions with the surface. Some create small disturbances, grains floating upward in slow arcs, others glide without causing a ripple. You watch how algorithms balance inertia, friction, and gravity to maintain stability. You feel the patience embedded in these systems, the gentle deliberation that allows complex tasks to succeed without aggression. It reminds you that exploration in space requires both humility and precision, a delicate respect for forces that are invisible yet real. You float higher, observing the asteroid belt stretching infinitely around you. Small machines dot the surface like mindful insects, moving with intent, learning as they go. You sense that intelligence here is iterative, growing in silence and observation. You imagine how these explorers could map entire regions, decode material compositions, and adapt to unforeseen conditions, all without human intervention. You feel a soft thrill at the quiet power of patient learning, a gentle wonder at the potential of robotics in space. Your awareness shifts to how humans might interface with these explorers. You imagine remote operators guiding movements, yet leaving room for the machine's own judgment. You sense a delicate balance between control and autonomy, trust and oversight. Each command is soft, minimal, allowing the robot to act with understanding. You feel your mind attuning to this partnership, aware that human curiosity and robotic precision can combine into something harmonious, expansive, and profoundly calm. As you drift toward the horizon of the asteroid, you notice tiny fragments floating in microgravity, collected and guided by the machines. You sense the care embedded in their every motion, nothing hurried, nothing wasted. You feel a deep respect for the patience and precision required to explore worlds where gravity is nearly absent, where each movement reverberates farther than expected. Your body and mind mirror this measured rhythm, letting curiosity flow slowly like a gentle tide. You pause to observe a robot turning slightly, its sensors scanning a fissure. You imagine the algorithms processing every detail, building an internal map of the asteroid's structure. You sense that this is more than work, it is learning, understanding, and discovery, all unfolding in silence. You feel your own mind expand with the scene, attuning to the subtlety, the patience, and the gentle power of intelligence in motion. Finally, you drift back slightly, allowing yourself to take in the full ballet of robotic movement across the asteroid. The dance is slow, precise, and mesmerizing. You realize that exploration in weightlessness is not about force but understanding, not about conquering but listening. Each robot's motion, each adjustment, each carefully measured lift is a meditation on how to extend human curiosity into worlds that challenge our very notions of presence and movement. You float above the asteroid, letting your gaze follow the tiny grains of rock and metal lifted gently from its surface. Each particle drifts like a suspended note in a quiet symphony, weightless yet full of potential. You sense the subtle differences between them, the metals that shimmer faintly, the silicates that glint softly, the dust that holds the memory of countless collisions. Your mind relaxes into the slow dance, your breath echoing the gentle rhythm of the particles' movements. Nearby, collectors hover with precise calm, their magnetic fields pulling iron and nickel like invisible hands. You imagine the hum of energy, subtle yet constant, drawing fragments toward their centers. The metals respond, rising, twirling, and finally settling into organized clusters. You feel the poetry in this separation, the elegance and the simplicity of physical forces performing their silent work. Each grain of metal becomes a treasure lifted carefully, a story preserved by patient, deliberate guidance. You drift closer to a vessel where chemistry begins to unfold. In weightlessness, reactions are soft, controlled, and silent. There is no flame, no clashing of ingredients, only molecules finding one another in gentle arcs, settling into bonds over time. You feel a calm fascination as the compounds separate naturally, influenced by slight differences in density, magnetism, and chemical affinity. It is as if the universe itself has choreographed this alchemy, allowing patience to replace force, observation to replace noise. Your thoughts follow the path of a single particle, a tiny speck of metal lifted by magnets and guided into a container. There, it drifts alongside other particles, joining a quiet procession of matter being sorted and purified. You sense that this is not extraction but refinement, a gentle unveiling of what the asteroid has hidden for eons. You imagine the care required, the algorithms and sensors monitoring each movement, ensuring nothing is lost, nothing wasted, nothing disturbed unnecessarily. You notice the interplay between magnetic fields and gravity. Even in microgravity, every force matters, every alignment counts. You imagine watching iron grains spiraling along invisible lines, each trajectory calculated yet natural. You feel a soft satisfaction, a deep calm, knowing that science can shape the unseen forces of the universe into something ordered and meaningful. Each particle finds its place, a microcosm of harmony, guided by laws older than humans yet perfectly understandable. Nearby, subtle chemical reactions separate minerals from silicates, oxygen from hydrogen, volatile compounds from denser metals. You sense the elegance in these transformations, quiet, patient, and deliberate. Each process is gentle, avoiding sudden disturbances, letting time and careful design work their magic. You feel your own awareness expand as you observe, realizing that in space, chemistry can be an act of mindfulness, a practice of observing change with respect for the environment. You drift past floating streams of particles, each directed by magnetic or chemical influence. Some metals cluster together, forming soft glints of silver and iron. Others settle in layers, arranged by subtle differences in weight and density. You imagine scientists observing these processes, learning not just about materials but about patience, precision, and the poetry of separation. Every particle tells a story, every arc of movement becomes a lesson in balance, every subtle reaction a demonstration of cosmic rhythm. You notice the smallest dust particles suspended near the edges of collectors. They swirl in lazy spirals, sometimes joining with others, sometimes remaining solitary. You feel your mind synchronize with this movement, slow and calm, as though you, too, are weightless among drifting grains of cosmic history. You imagine the care needed to guide these particles into their proper containers, avoiding collisions, ensuring purity, preserving both their scientific value and their fragile beauty. Nearby, a small robotic arm extends into a chemical vessel. It manipulates tiny amounts of material, stirring gently without haste, adjusting fields and temperatures imperceptibly. You feel the patience inherent in every motion, the awareness that even a single misstep could scatter particles or ruin a careful separation. You sense that exploration in microgravity is as much about restraint as it is about action, as much about observation as execution. The machines embody calm, patience, and thoughtful intelligence. You drift over a pool of slowly reacting minerals. The surfaces glint under soft sunlight, reflecting faintly in patterns that mesmerize the eye. Metals separate, settling in ordered layers, while lighter compounds float gently above. You notice how the slightest change in temperature, field strength, or orientation affects the process. You sense the necessity of constant attention, but also the freedom of working with processes that unfold in slow, comprehensible time. You feel your own breath lengthen, matching the pace of transformation. Your imagination explores the possibilities of what these separated treasures could become. Metals could be refined into building materials, silicates could form the base of habitats, volatile compounds might produce fuel or life support resources. You sense the connection between patient separation and the promise of future exploration. Each action, however small, contributes to a larger story of human ingenuity and cosmic understanding. You feel your mind resting in the gentle certainty that careful, thoughtful work yields both knowledge and opportunity. You drift higher, watching multiple collection vessels floating serenely. Some rotate slowly, using centrifugal forces to assist separation. Others rely solely on magnetism or precise chemical reactions. You sense the elegance in the variety of techniques, each chosen for its harmony with the asteroid's properties. You feel awe at the intelligence and creativity required to develop methods that work so gently, yet so effectively, in a world where even dust behaves differently than on Earth. You observe how small fragments of metal slowly come together into tiny clusters. You imagine the quiet hum of sensors monitoring every movement, recording data for humans to analyze later. You feel the patience of the universe mirrored in these operations, the sense that the cosmos responds to careful guidance, reward for subtlety, not force. Each magnetic lift, each gentle chemical separation, feels like a meditation in motion, a quiet celebration of discovery and understanding. You float above a quiet construction site on the asteroid's surface, where machines begin the delicate act of creation. Dust that once drifted freely now hovers in organized streams, guided by gentle magnetic and robotic hands. Each grain becomes a brushstroke in a slow, deliberate painting, forming beams, walls, and hollow shells. You sense the calm intelligence guiding this transformation, a rhythm of observation, movement, and placement that mirrors the patient unfolding of natural processes. The structures rise slowly, layer by layer, as though the asteroid itself is instructing the builders. You imagine each layer of dust hardening under controlled conditions, binding to the one below it without need for gravity's pressure. The machines move in smooth, precise arcs, placing material where it is needed, adjusting to subtle shifts in the floating particles. You feel your body and mind relax, attuning to the serenity of creation unfolding at its own deliberate pace. You watch a robotic arm sweep across a section, sprinkling fine grains of regolith and metals into an exact pattern. Each movement is careful, balanced, and unhurried. You sense the thought embedded in every action, how much material to place, how to adjust for microgravity, how to ensure stability without the weight of Earth. The process is mesmerizing, a meditation in motion, as dust transforms into tangible, functional structures. Nearby, another device extrudes a metallic mixture, forming the backbone of a tiny habitat. The arcs of metal twist softly through space, guided by sensors that respond to every variation in gravity, temperature, and surface contour. You imagine the patience required, no sudden moves, no haste, only the deliberate layering that allows each section to bond without collapse. You feel a calm fascination at how weightlessness, often seen as a challenge, becomes an advantage, allowing creation in 3 dimensions with freedom impossible on Earth. You drift closer to observe a dome forming slowly above a collection of modules. The curvature is perfect, achieved not by scaffolding or cranes but by the careful choreography of robotic arms and deposition nozzles. Each layer binds to the previous, soft dust hardened by targeted energy fields that mimic gravity's binding effect. You sense the elegance, no foundation is required, no rigid support needed, only patience, precision, and knowledge. The structures rise as if emerging naturally from the asteroid's surface, quiet monuments to careful design. You notice the materials used, a mix of regolith, metallic grains, and binding agents manipulated gently in microgravity. Each component contributes to strength, durability, and thermal regulation. You feel your awareness deepen as you observe the science at work, minerals chosen for their properties, dust placed with meticulous intent, and energy applied just enough to bond without disruption. You sense the intelligence required to turn raw cosmic material into usable, lasting habitats. As you drift higher, you see entire modules taking shape, connected by soft arches and interlocking beams. Dust flows like liquid from one machine to another, guided by magnetic and mechanical forces. You feel the calm harmony of the process, a dance between matter and machine, energy and intent, human planning and automated precision. It is a quiet symphony of creation, unfolding without haste or sound, yet full of promise and purpose. You imagine stepping inside one of these structures once complete. The walls feel solid yet light, formed by layers of particles that were once floating freely. The modules offer shelter and functionality without heavy construction or forceful assembly. You sense the comfort of knowing that human ingenuity, paired with patient science, can transform the emptiness of space into livable, safe, and even beautiful environments. Your mind drifts, contemplating the future, habitats built directly from the very worlds humans explore. Robotic systems continue their work, scanning surfaces, adjusting trajectories, and adding new material precisely where needed. You feel a sense of calm admiration for the way these machines compensate for microgravity, vibrations, and environmental fluctuations. Every movement is measured, every placement intentional. You notice that errors are not punished but gently corrected, the system adapting gracefully as the habitat slowly grows in size and complexity. You watch as soft sunlight falls on the emerging structures, glinting off metallic veins and reflecting through translucent layers of hardened dust. The light highlights the curves and textures of the modules, turning the construction site into a gentle mosaic of shadow and shine. You feel a meditative rhythm settle over you, your mind aligning with the patient, deliberate pace of creation. The asteroid, the dust, the machines, and the sunlight all participate in a quiet dance, producing structures that are both functional and aesthetically serene. You imagine how these habitats might evolve, expansion modules added one at a time, delicate bridges linking floating platforms, interiors designed for comfort and efficiency. The process is iterative, allowing learning and adjustment as each layer is added. You sense the intelligence embedded not just in the machines, but in the workflow itself, patient, observant, and adaptive. Every small adjustment, every corrected alignment, becomes part of the quiet choreography of growth. Your thoughts wander to the possibility of larger communities, entire stations emerging from asteroid dust. Each unit constructed layer by layer, expanding with careful intention. You feel a soft awe at the idea that humans might one day live among worlds built from the very particles they once mined. The vast silence of space becomes a canvas, the dust the medium, and the patient application of energy and attention the brush that transforms emptiness into livable, functional habitats. You drift closer to observe the final touches on a dome's apex. Tiny particles settle into place, guided by gentle fields and robotic precision. Each grain contributes to the structure's stability, each layer a testament to patient calculation and respect for the laws of physics. You feel the quiet joy of creation, the satisfaction of watching raw material transformed into purposeful form. The weightless world seems to respond, welcoming the structures, allowing them to rise without resistance, as though the asteroid itself is pleased by the harmony of motion and matter. You drift softly over the surface of a distant asteroid, imagining the tiny crystals of ice hidden beneath its dusty skin. Each fragment glimmers faintly, a quiet promise of life and energy. You feel the stillness surrounding you, the calm expanse of space emphasizing the delicate importance of every drop of water. In microgravity, each molecule moves like a slow dancer, waiting to be gathered, separated, and transformed. You sense the potential held within this simple compound, the same molecule that sustains life on Earth, now a lifeline for explorers drifting farther into the solar system. You observe a robotic collector moving slowly over a patch of frozen regolith. It lifts chunks of ice, transferring them into containers designed to withstand the fragile conditions of microgravity. You feel the care embedded in every motion. The scoops brush softly against the surface, the ice is secured without shattering, and every step is calculated to avoid unnecessary force. You realize that in the quiet of space, gentleness becomes strength, and patience becomes power. Inside a processing chamber, the ice is slowly transformed. You watch as heat, pressure, and gentle chemical reactions split water into its essential components, oxygen and hydrogen. The oxygen, bright and light, rises softly, ready to fill the lungs of explorers. The hydrogen, invisible yet potent, is captured for fuel, the energy that will propel rockets toward distant worlds. You sense the elegance of this process, a single molecule becoming both life and propulsion, quietly bridging survival and exploration. Your mind follows a single drop of water as it moves through the system. It freezes in one chamber, melts under careful warmth in another, and finally separates into its two elemental forms. You feel a rhythm in the transformation, a slow pulse of energy and possibility. Each molecule's journey is a meditation on the potential of human ingenuity, how understanding the simplest compounds can sustain life in the harshest environments. You imagine the hydrogen filling a tiny storage tank. In microgravity, it drifts softly, guided by magnetic fields and containment systems. You feel the quiet power inherent in this invisible fuel, waiting to ignite, to release energy capable of bridging millions of kilometers. You realize that in space, energy is not just about power, it is about timing, precision, and careful respect for forces that can overwhelm if mishandled. Nearby, oxygen is routed into storage systems designed to maintain life. You watch the slow filling of tanks, the careful monitoring of pressure and purity. You sense the importance of patience, as even small errors could compromise survival. You feel a soft wonder at how such a simple molecule, hydrogen and oxygen combined, becomes central to both human life and the propulsion of vessels through silent space. The asteroid, once just a wandering rock, has become a reservoir of potential, quietly sustaining distant journeys. You drift past multiple processing units, each performing similar operations, ice lifted, separated, stored, and prepared for use. You feel a sense of calm repetition, each action deliberate, each step reinforcing the harmony between human knowledge, robotic precision, and the natural resources of the asteroid. You sense that exploration depends not on haste, but on the careful orchestration of countless small movements, chemical reactions, and collected molecules. Your awareness expands to the broader possibilities. These small reservoirs of water and fuel could support entire fleets of spacecraft, orbiting stations, and colonies on distant worlds. You feel the magnitude of potential, a network of resources quietly sustaining life and motion across millions of kilometers. You realize that water in space is both a practical necessity and a symbol of human ingenuity, a bridge connecting imagination with survival. You watch a robotic arm deliver a freshly extracted block of ice to a solar-powered furnace. You imagine the gentle heat gradually sublimating the ice into gas, which is then split and captured. You feel the rhythm of energy transformation, the slow, elegant choreography of extraction, separation, and storage. It is a process that unfolds like a meditation, where each step is precise, deliberate, and harmonized with the fragile physics of microgravity. As you drift, your mind follows the journey of the collected hydrogen. You envision it being transferred into fuel cells, ready to power engines or provide backup energy for habitats. You feel the quiet potency of this element, contained yet capable of releasing immense power when required. You sense the responsibility inherent in handling such resources, and with that, a sense of calm reverence for the balance between human exploration and cosmic safety. Nearby, oxygen flows softly into life support tanks. You imagine the first breaths taken by explorers far from Earth, inhaling air sourced from ice hidden within a distant asteroid. Each inhale connects them to the quiet patience of the universe, to molecules preserved for eons, now transformed into sustenance. You feel a gentle warmth imagining humans drawing life from these small worlds, floating safely among dust, metal, and ice, supported by careful science. You notice the integration of systems, fuel, oxygen, and water moving in unison, managed by robotics, monitored by sensors, adjusted in real time. You sense the harmony of technology, physics, and human understanding. The extraction of water is not just about survival, it is a symphony of observation, calculation, and patient execution. You feel your mind attuned to this rhythm, aware of how quiet, deliberate processes sustain life across the void. You drift higher, observing the broader asteroid belt. Each world could host similar operations, small pools of ice converted into fuel and oxygen, quietly sustaining distant missions. You sense the vast possibilities, a network of resource nodes, each functioning in silence, patiently supporting human curiosity and movement. You imagine a future where these reservoirs orbit the sun, providing sustenance for explorers venturing further than ever before. Your attention lingers on the relationship between water and exploration. It is both literal and symbolic, a molecule of life becoming a molecule of motion. You feel the elegance of this duality, how survival and progress, breathing and travel, are bound together in quiet chemical processes. You sense that space exploration, at its heart, depends on the transformation of such simple elements into tools, energy, and sustenance, all orchestrated with patience and care. You float above a field of asteroids, imagining them as quiet vaults of untapped potential. Each rock holds metals, minerals, and volatiles waiting patiently for human ingenuity to gently extract them. You sense the stillness, the calm energy of possibility. This is not a rush to conquer, but a slow, deliberate unfolding, an economy growing quietly in the weightless expanse, guided by patience, foresight, and understanding. Your thoughts drift to the mechanics of cost. On Earth, mining is loud, expensive, and intrusive, demanding vast energy and effort. In space, however, economies shift differently. Rockets become reusable, traveling to and from these wandering worlds like gentle couriers, carrying payloads of metals, water, and fuel. You feel the rhythm of repetition, each mission refining techniques, reducing cost, increasing efficiency, all without urgency or stress. You sense a patient balance between investment and return, a calm progression that mirrors natural processes rather than forcing them. You imagine the markets that might emerge around these resources. Iron, nickel, platinum, and rare elements move not through bustling stock exchanges, but through carefully coordinated missions, shipping quietly from asteroid to station, from station to Earth or orbiting facilities. You feel the subtle pulse of supply and demand, a gentle rhythm responding to the availability of distant materials. Each shift is measured, deliberate, and thoughtful, mirroring the slow accumulation of resources in microgravity. Nearby, robotic mining units lift fragments of metal into orbiting collectors. You sense the precision of their work, the careful timing, the planning required to align launches, orbit transfers, and storage. Each piece of metal represents both tangible wealth and intellectual investment, the result of patient effort and calculated exploration. You feel a quiet admiration for the orchestration required, where logistics, physics, and strategy converge to create a sustainable economy in the void. Your mind wanders to the subtle ripple effects on Earth. Rare metals might become more accessible, fuels cheaper, and materials once scarce suddenly abundant. Industries could transform, energy systems adapt, and technologies flourish. You sense the calm power in this shift, progress that does not uproot or exhaust, but expands gently, thoughtfully, and responsibly. The quiet economy of space is as much about careful observation and planning as it is about extraction and trade. You float over an orbital station, imagining it as a hub of activity. Rockets arrive and depart with predictable regularity, their trajectories synchronized to conserve fuel and time. You feel the elegance in this routine, no panic, No haste, only the patient fulfillment of repeated cycles, each building upon the lessons of the previous. Materials flow steadily, enabling construction, research, and life support systems across a growing network of off-world facilities. You notice the interplay between innovation and efficiency. Technologies evolve in response to challenges: drills that operate in microgravity, collectors that sort metals silently, solar furnaces that melt stone without noise. Each improvement reduces cost, increases reliability, and enhances sustainability. You sense the quiet brilliance of iterative refinement, where knowledge accumulates slowly, creating compounding benefits over time. Every new tool, every design adjustment, contributes to the stability of the frontier. Nearby, scientists calculate the precise timing of launches, the optimal harvesting of metals, and the delicate management of orbits. You feel the calm thoughtfulness of these plans, the patience embedded in every decision. They understand that mistakes in space are costly, that care is paramount, and that long-term prosperity depends on observation, calculation, and restraint. You sense that space economics is less about speed and more about rhythm, a measured cadence that sustains growth and minimizes risk. You imagine the human element in this economy. Engineers, operators, scientists, and visionaries work in quiet collaboration, coordinating missions from Earth, orbiting stations, and distant outposts. You sense the subtle harmony of communication, the rhythm of planning and execution, and the patient accumulation of both resources and knowledge. Each contribution, though small, compounds over time, gradually shaping a sustainable, thriving frontier beyond Earth. You drift among the asteroids once more, noticing how some rocks are richer in metals, others in volatiles, each offering unique opportunities. You feel the calm calculation required to prioritize, schedule, and harvest efficiently. Nothing is hurried, each decision is informed by science, experience, and foresight. You sense that this economy, though silent and slow-moving, is as complex and dynamic as any on Earth, responding naturally to supply, demand, and opportunity. Your mind reflects on risk management. Launch windows, orbital alignments, mechanical failures all must be anticipated, mitigated, and carefully planned. You feel the weight of responsibility balanced by the quiet satisfaction of competence. In space, mistakes are not trivial, but patience, observation, and redundancy create resilience. You sense the elegance of systems designed to sustain both human life and the economy of distant worlds. You drift closer to a mining operation, where robots lift metals into orbiting containers. Each movement is precise, measured, and deliberate. You feel a sense of order in the apparent chaos, a quiet orchestration of tasks that transforms raw material into usable assets. The economy unfolds not in haste or conflict, but in careful, consistent steps, each reinforcing the stability of the growing space infrastructure. You imagine a future where Earth's industries are subtly transformed. Metals once rare are accessible, fuels are replenished from space reservoirs, and energy-intensive processes shift toward efficiency and sustainability. You feel the quiet thrill of potential, how knowledge, patience, and careful execution in the void can ripple back to improve life on Earth. The frontier becomes not a site of conflict, but a source of growth, innovation, and balance. You drift above the orbiting stations and see the gentle cycle: extraction, processing, storage, and transport, all operating in rhythm with solar orbits and gravitational flows. You feel the beauty in the continuity, the harmony of repeated patterns that support both life and industry. The economy of space is patient, deliberate, and meditative, expanding slowly yet inevitably, fueled by curiosity, intelligence, and care. You drift gently over the surface of an asteroid, letting your eyes follow the minute clouds of dust rising from its surface. Each grain shimmers faintly, reflecting sunlight in soft, almost imperceptible glimmers. You feel the stillness of this ancient material, untouched for billions of years, yet profoundly alive with memory. Every speck holds a story of impacts, radiation, and the slow evolution of the solar system. Your mind relaxes as you realize that in the smallest particles, the vast history of space is preserved. Nearby, a robotic probe moves carefully across the regolith, its instruments scanning for fine dust while avoiding unnecessary disturbance. You notice how each movement is deliberate and slow, as though even machines must respect the fragility of this ancient environment. You sense that dust, while tiny, is a formidable companion. It clings to surfaces, drifts with microcurrents, and can interfere with delicate machinery if not managed thoughtfully. The challenge is not just extraction or observation, but coexistence. You imagine the particles themselves as quiet messengers. Some bear scars from tiny collisions, others carry the subtle imprint of cosmic radiation. Each is unique, yet together they form a soft, silvery blanket across the asteroid's surface. You feel your mind attuned to this rhythm, small yet significant, delicate yet persistent. You realize that even in a place without wind or water, dust moves and interacts in ways that require patience, understanding, and respect. You drift closer to a suit-clad astronaut gently collecting samples. Dust clings stubbornly to gloves and visors, spreading slowly like a fine snowfall. You sense the care required to manage it, every touch measured, every motion deliberate. Machines must also adapt. Joints, sensors, and collectors must be shielded, lubricated, and monitored to prevent tiny grains from compromising their delicate operations. You feel a soft admiration for the ingenuity required to navigate this fragile environment. You watch as a sample collector lifts a cloud of fine particles, guiding it into a sealed container. The dust swirls, illuminated by sunlight, forming intricate patterns before settling. You sense a meditative quality in this process, the slow dance of material, the careful orchestration of capture, and the patience of those controlling the operation. Each grain is treated as precious, carrying with it a fragment of cosmic history. You feel the quiet poetry of science in motion, observing without rush, preserving without disturbance. Nearby, small fragments drift in microgravity, moving along the paths dictated by tiny forces, magnetic interactions, electrostatic charges, and gentle nudges from robotic manipulators. You notice how unpredictable their motion can be, yet also how patterns emerge when observed closely. You feel your mind slow, following the dance of particles, recognizing the subtle order within apparent chaos. The dust is not an obstacle alone, but a companion, a reminder of the delicacy and history of these silent worlds. You imagine the challenges of constructing habitats or machinery in this environment. Dust can accumulate in joints, obscure sensors, and alter mechanical properties. You sense the need for solutions that respect both the material and the machines, soft brushes, gentle airflows, magnetic shields, and careful handling. You feel the intelligence inherent in these designs, the meditation required to manage something so small yet so historically significant. Each interaction becomes a quiet negotiation between human intention and cosmic material. You drift higher, observing clouds of dust rising from impact sites or machinery movements. They float in slow, swirling arcs, forming patterns that almost seem alive. You feel your mind attuned to these rhythms, understanding that coexistence in microgravity is about observation, patience, and adaptation. The dust, though ancient and fragile, participates in the quiet ecosystem of the asteroid, influencing operations, habitats, and the delicate balance of life and space. Nearby, sensors monitor particles, tracking their motion, density, and composition. You sense the precision required to maintain harmony. One misstep could scatter the dust, disrupt a delicate operation, or obscure critical readings. You feel the importance of patience and foresight, understanding that in the silence of space, even the smallest materials demand respect. Dust becomes more than an inconvenience, it becomes a teacher of caution, awareness, and gentle intervention. You watch as a robot gently sweeps residual particles from an exposed surface. The grains drift slowly, forming soft arcs before settling once again. You notice the subtle beauty in their motion, the way they catch light and reveal the textures of the asteroid beneath. You feel your mind slow further, appreciating the intricate choreography of microgravity. Every interaction is deliberate, every adjustment measured, every grain treated as both obstacle and artifact. You imagine human communities gradually adapting to this environment. Dust management becomes part of everyday routine, suits designed to repel fine particles, tools engineered to resist contamination, and habitats built with surfaces that capture and recycle stray grains. You sense the quiet intelligence in this adaptation, the slow learning process that ensures survival, productivity, and respect for the ancient environment. The dust teaches mindfulness, precision, and the value of care. You drift closer to examine a particle under a sensor array. Its structure glows softly under analysis, revealing layers formed over billions of years. You sense the story contained within: ancient impacts, solar radiation, chemical transformations, and cosmic journeys. Every particle carries lessons from the early solar system, a soft archive of time. You feel awe and calm simultaneously, recognizing the privilege of studying, preserving, and coexisting with such delicate witnesses. Nearby, dust clouds drift across the surface, occasionally disturbed by robotic arms or minor impacts. You notice the subtle interactions between particles, observing how they cluster, repel, or settle. You feel the elegance in these microdynamics, the intricate balance of forces, and the patient observation required to understand them. Dust is not inert, it moves, responds, and interacts with the environment, quietly shaping every human and robotic activity on the asteroid. You drift back, observing the interplay of machinery, humans, and dust. Each element moves with intention, guided by observation, respect, and patience. You sense that coexistence requires mindfulness, understanding the environment, predicting interactions, and adjusting methods with care. Dust, though small, becomes a teacher, teaching restraint, precision, and the quiet art of adaptation in extreme conditions. You drift gently through the vastness of space, feeling the slow, rhythmic pulse of the solar system beneath you. Asteroids, once solitary wanderers, now carry small stations and structures, softly illuminated by the distant sun. You sense the quiet growth of human presence, an expansion that is careful, patient, and mindful of the delicate environment. The darkness of space is not empty, but alive with subtle motion, the gentle dance of worlds orbiting a shared center. Your gaze follows a small station perched on the surface of a metallic asteroid. Machines move silently, harvesting materials, processing them, and storing them for future use. You sense the harmony in their operations, every motion deliberate, every action measured. Dust drifts slowly around the modules, guided by microgravity and careful design. You feel your own breathing slow as you absorb the calm, rhythmic pulse of this quiet frontier. Nearby, another station collects water ice, transforming it into oxygen and hydrogen with serene efficiency. You imagine explorers gently filling their tanks, their movements slow and respectful of the fragile environment. You sense that every step of human activity is guided not by haste, but by awareness and understanding that sustainability in space requires patience, precision, and quiet care. The solar system is becoming a neighborhood, a series of gently connected nodes where life, resources, and curiosity coexist. You imagine the pathways of travel between these stations. Small spacecraft glide along orbital corridors, engines humming softly, their journeys carefully timed to conserve energy. You feel the elegance of repeated motion, the silent orchestration of dozens of vehicles navigating an intricate celestial highway. Exploration is not chaotic, it is choreographed, harmonious, and deeply intentional. You sense that human expansion, guided by respect and understanding, becomes a meditation in motion. Your mind drifts to the people inhabiting these outposts. Scientists, engineers, and explorers move gracefully in low gravity, their lives intertwined with machines and materials. You feel the calm rhythm of daily routines, observation, collection, construction, and study. Life is different here, quieter, slower, and more deliberate, yet rich with the satisfaction of discovery. Each person contributes to the gentle unfolding of a human presence in space, their actions in tune with the movements of the asteroids, the flow of dust, and the cycles of energy. You observe a solar array capturing sunlight, its panels rotating slowly to follow the sun's path. Energy flows silently into storage systems, powering habitats, machinery, and life support systems. You sense the patient balance between technology and natural forces, energy harvested without disturbance, machines operating without excess, and humans moving with awareness. You feel a profound serenity as you watch these systems function in harmony, a reminder that expansion does not require force, only thoughtful adaptation. Nearby, mining modules move across surfaces with gentle precision. Materials are lifted, sorted, and processed with care, leaving the asteroid's surface largely undisturbed. You notice how the environment itself participates in the work, microgravity guiding dust, magnetic fields assisting collection, and thermal gradients aiding chemical separation. You feel the calm beauty of cooperation between human intent and natural law, where progress unfolds slowly, patiently, and without disruption. You imagine the broader solar system as a network of such stations. Some focus on metals, others on water or volatile compounds. You sense a rhythm connecting them, an intricate flow of resources, knowledge, and human presence. The vast distances feel less intimidating because the processes are repetitive, reliable, and orchestrated with foresight. You sense that the quiet accumulation of infrastructure, experience, and materials forms a foundation for future generations of explorers, thinkers, and settlers. You drift past a habitat module where humans live and work. You see them moving with careful awareness, adjusting machinery, collecting samples, and observing their surroundings. You notice their expressions of wonder, quiet fascination, and meditative calm. Life in space, while demanding, is also a practice in mindfulness, requiring attention to detail, patience with processes, and appreciation for the fragile balance of systems. You feel your own mind absorb this serenity, understanding that human expansion can be both ambitious and gentle. Nearby, robotic assistants glide through corridors, transferring materials and monitoring systems. You sense the integration of technology into daily life, machines acting as extensions of human thought and care. Dust is managed carefully, energy is conserved deliberately, and every action contributes to a broader harmony. You feel a quiet pride in the intelligence and ingenuity required to sustain this life in a hostile environment, and a soft awe at the calm rhythm of existence among the stars. You drift higher, observing asteroid stations glowing faintly like lanterns scattered across a silent sky. Each one is a note of discovery, habitation, and transformation. You sense the subtle interconnections between them, the movement of people, resources, and energy forming an invisible web of human presence. The solar system, once vast and forbidding, feels like a neighborhood, quiet, familiar, and filled with possibility. You feel the reassurance of progress unfolding at its own measured pace, guided by respect and foresight. You imagine the next generations growing up with this quiet presence in space. Children may walk in low gravity, exploring modules and asteroid surfaces with curiosity and wonder. Scientists will learn from materials untouched for billions of years. Engineers will refine technologies with care and patience. You sense the continuity of human experience, the slow accumulation of knowledge and adaptation, as generations live, work, and dream among drifting worlds. You float past a water processing station, watching hydrogen and oxygen flow gently into storage. Nearby, fuel tanks are filled with care, ready to power distant missions. You feel the elegance of self-sufficiency, each station capable of sustaining life, energy, and exploration without haste or excess. You sense the quiet independence of each node, yet also the interconnectedness of the network, forming a soft web of human presence that reaches from asteroid to asteroid, orbit to orbit. You imagine the first permanent settlements, small communities anchored to asteroids or constructed in orbit. Dust and resources are managed with care, habitats grow slowly through 3D printing, and life support systems function with patient efficiency. You feel the gentle rhythm of daily existence, punctuated by curiosity, observation, and quiet innovation. The solar system feels alive, not as a frontier to conquer, but as a partner in human growth and imagination. Your mind drifts to the future missions that these stations will support. Explorers may journey farther, fueled by water harvested in silence and powered by hydrogen extracted from distant ice. Knowledge will be shared, technology refined, and experience accumulated. You sense the slow unfolding of potential, a network of habitats, stations, and explorers extending human presence across space, guided by care, patience, and quiet ingenuity. You drift above a glowing cluster of asteroid stations, sensing the unity of purpose and the serenity of methodical expansion. Materials flow, humans live and work, and the silent rhythm of operations carries on without haste. You feel a profound calm, a sense of being part of a larger, deliberate movement that stretches across millions of kilometers. Expansion is not frantic, but graceful, guided by observation, understanding, and foresight. Finally, you float above the entire system, seeing the quiet glow of humanity's presence amidst the ancient, drifting worlds. You sense the soft pulse of life, work, and discovery radiating outward, a gentle heartbeat in the vast darkness. The solar system feels like home, familiar, serene, and full of possibility. And as you drift along this calm network of stations, modules, and resources, a soft longing settles in your mind. Where will your curiosity take you next?